I remember that night vividly. The air thick with laughter and the pulsing beat of music reverberating through the dimly lit gym. The smell of snacks and cheap cologne mingled with the excitement that buzzed in the room. It was the end of the school year, and everyone was buzzing with the thrill of freedom that summer promised. I stood awkwardly at the edge of the crowd, my heart racing as I watched my classmates dance and chat, their faces alight with joy. "Hey, Robert," called out Mike, one of the popular kids. He waved me over, his grin wide. "Come on, man, join us. We're about to try something new." I hesitated, the knot in my stomach tightening. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to play it cool. "Cigarettes, dude. Just a little puff. It'll be fun," he said, his eyes glinting with mischief. Around him, a group of friends cheered, some already holding small packs of cigarettes, the white sticks poking out like tiny flags of rebellion. I felt a rush of anxiety and excitement. I had never smoked before. My parents had always warned me about the dangers. But the urge to fit in, to be part of the group, was overwhelming. "I don't know," I mumbled, glancing at the smirking faces around me. "Come on, just one puff. It's no big deal," urged Sarah, batting her eyelashes playfully. With a deep breath, I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I stepped forward, and in that moment, I chose acceptance over caution. As I took the cigarette from Mike's hand, I felt a rush of exhilaration. The world around me faded, replaced by the thrill of feeling included. I lit the cigarette, the flame flickering in the dim light as I inhaled for the first time. The smoke filled my lungs, and I coughed violently, the sharp sting catching me off guard. "Ugh, this is disgusting," I coughed, but the laughter of my friends drowned out my discomfort. "Just keep at it. You'll get used to it," Mike chuckled, clapping me on the back. As the evening wore on and I took more puffs, a strange sense of camaraderie enveloped us. I felt something I had longed for, acceptance. The initial discomfort faded, and I basked in the glow of my friends' approval. Little did I know that this choice would lead me down a dark path. Years later, I found myself in a cramped office, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I stared blankly at my computer screen. The stress of deadlines and endless meetings consumed me. The thrill of youth had turned into a suffocating routine. My hand instinctively reached for the pack of cigarettes hidden in the drawer. I pulled it out, the crinkling sound echoing in the silence around me. "Just need a quick break," I muttered to myself, lighting one up, the familiar taste filling my mouth. It was my escape, my way to cope with the daily grind. I knew I was ignoring the warning signs, my persistent cough, the tightness in my chest, but I brushed them aside like annoying flies. "Robert, you're not looking so good," Clara said one evening as we sat at the dinner table. Her voice was laced with concern, her brow furrowed as she looked at me over her plate of uneaten food. "I'm fine, Clara. Just a little tired from work," I replied dismissively, taking a long drag from my cigarette. I could see the disappointment in her eyes, but I didn't want to deal with her worries. "You worry too much. Worrying is my job as your wife," she shot back, frustration simmering beneath her calm demeanor. "You need to quit smoking. It's affecting your health." I scoffed, irritation bubbling up. "I can handle it, Clara. I'm not some weakling who can't take a bit of pressure. Besides, it's just a couple of cigarettes. It's not a big deal." My defiance hung in the air, thick and suffocating like the smoke I exhaled. She sighed, her expression softening for a moment. "I just want you to be healthy. Robert, you're scaring me," she said quietly, her voice trembling. But in that moment, I didn't care. I took another drag, the smoke curling around me like a comforting blanket, blocking out her worries and the mounting pressure of my life. I was convinced I had it under control, lost in my own denial, unaware of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. I felt the world around me slipping away as I collapsed on the park bench, gasping for air. My chest tightened, and darkness encroached, swallowing my thoughts and fears. It was as if I was being pulled into an abyss, the sounds of the city fading into a distant hum. I had pushed my body to its limits, ignoring the signs, the warnings. And now, here I was, teetering on the edge of consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in the park anymore. I was in a nebulous space, shrouded in shadows and whispers. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, and I could see flickering shapes darting around me, their voices barely audible. It was unsettling, the way they seemed to swirl and twist, as if they were alive. I tried to focus, to make sense of my surroundings, but the more I strained, the more disoriented I became. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the murky depths, moving with a deliberate slowness that sent a chill down my spine. He was tall and cloaked in darkness, his features obscured but for a cruel smile that seemed to stretch impossibly wide across his face. I could feel a cold, mocking presence radiating from him, and I instinctively recoiled. "Welcome, Robert," he said, his voice smooth and dripping with malice. It echoed around me, amplifying the fear that gripped my heart. "I am Asner, and you, my dear boy, have made quite the mess of your life. What are you?" I croaked, my throat dry and raspy. "Where am I?" "You're in a realm of your own making," he replied, his smile widening as he stepped closer. "A space where your choices have led you. You see, every puff you took, every moment you chose the smoke over your family, brought you here." I swallowed hard, trying to shake off the paralysis that threatened to overwhelm me. "I don't understand. I was just trying to cope, to fit in." Asner let out a low, mocking laugh. "Ah, fitting in, the great illusion. But tell me, what has that brought you? A lifetime of regret? Health in shambles? Look around you, Robert. This is the paradise you've built." With a wave of his hand, the shadows around us shifted, and I was suddenly engulfed in a swirling maelstrom of images. I saw myself, sitting alone in a haze of smoke, a cigarette dangling from my fingers. The laughter of friends faded away, replaced by the hollow silence of my apartment. I was ensnared in a web of loneliness, drowning in my choices. "Is this what you wanted?" Asner taunted, his voice echoing in my mind. "To be surrounded by smoke, while your family suffers. You think you're being a good husband, a good father? Look again." The images morphed, and I witnessed the faces of my wife and children. Clara's tear-streaked cheeks, Lucas and Sophia's frightened eyes, filled with concern as they watched me cough and struggle to breathe. My heart sank as I realized the depth of my selfishness. They were suffering because of me, and I had chosen to ignore their pain. "No, no," I gasped, shaking my head in disbelief. "I didn't mean to." "But you did," Asner interrupted, his tone almost sing-song. "You chose the smoke over the very people who love you. And now, you're here, trapped in this fog of your own making." I could feel the weight of despair pressing down on me, the reality of my choices crashing over me like a tidal wave. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. Asner stepped even closer, his eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. "I want you to see the truth, Robert. You can choose to remain in this darkness, or you can fight. But know this, the battle will be long and hard, and I will always be lurking in the shadows, waiting for you to falter." As he spoke, a shiver ran down my spine. I had thought I was strong, that I could handle everything. But now, faced with this horrifying reality, I felt small, powerless. For the first time, I understood the true cost of my addiction. It wasn't just my life hanging in the balance. It was the lives of those I loved. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Because, Robert," Asner replied, his voice a sinister whisper in the dark, "you need to choose. Will you cling to the smoke, or will you fight for your family? The choice is yours. But remember, the darkness is always waiting." As he spoke, the shadows around us thickened, and I felt the weight of his presence pressing down on me, challenging me to confront the truth I had long avoided. I floated in the haze of my own making, detached from reality, yet painfully aware of the shadows that surrounded me. It was a surreal experience, like being trapped in a dream that I couldn't wake up from. I could hear faint whispers, echoes of my past, my laughter, the smoke curling around my fingers, the feel of a cigarette resting between my lips. In the midst of it all, a chill crept in, and I felt a presence. "Ah, Robert." The voice slithered through the darkness, smooth yet sinister. I turned, and there stood Asner, his figure shrouded in a cloak of swirling smoke. He grinned, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Welcome back to your paradise. What do you want from me?" I stammered, my voice trembling. My heart raced as I took a step back, but the shadows seemed to close in around me. Want? Oh, dear boy. I'm merely here to show you the fruits of your labor. He waved his hand, and the air shimmered, revealing scenes from my life, moments twisted by the haze of smoke. I was suddenly standing in my living room, watching my children, Lucas and Sophia, play on the floor. They giggled, their laughter echoing in my ears. But then, the scene shifted. I froze as I saw them coughing, their small faces contorted in discomfort. No! I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. Look closely, Asner urged, stepping closer, his breath cold against my skin. This is the reality you've created. Your choices have consequences. They are suffering because of you. I felt as if a heavy weight was pressing down on my chest. I didn't mean for this to happen, I murmured, tears stinging my eyes. I thought I was just dealing with my stress. Stress? Asner chuckled, the sound dripping with mockery. Is that what you call it? A coping mechanism? A way to fit in? You've sentenced them to a life plagued by your addiction. The scene shifted again, and now I saw Clara, my wife. She sat on the edge of our bed, her hands clasped together, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please, Robert, she pleaded, her voice breaking. You have to stop. I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. Clara, I whispered, my heart aching for her. I didn't know. Asner leaned in, his eyes glimmering with delight. And yet here we are. You thought you could control it, didn't you? But look at what you've done. Look at how the smoke has wrapped itself around your family, choking the life out of them. No! I screamed, desperation clawing at me. I can change. I can make it right. Can you? Asner raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth curling upward. You're so deep in your addiction, Robert. Your children are already paying the price for your ignorance. Do you even realize how your choices affect them? I turned away from the visions, unable to bear the weight of their pain. I never wanted this. I choked out. I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted a moment of peace. Peace! Asner echoed, his laughter echoing in the void. What a naive notion. This is the peace you've chosen. A peaceful existence buried beneath layers of smoke and regret. He gestured again, and another image flickered into view. I saw Lucas and Sophia in our home, coughing, their faces pale and weary. It pierced my heart like a dagger. Look at them, Asner demanded, his voice rising. Look at how they suffer because of you. They are afraid, Robert. They are afraid of losing you. But you're already lost. No! I felt a surge of anger, but it quickly crumbled into despair. I didn't know. I thought I could handle it. Handle it? Asner laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in the emptiness. You've handled nothing. Your choices have led you to this moment, and you're just beginning to understand the depth of your failure. I felt my knees buckle, and I sank to the ground, burying my face in my hands. What can I do? I whispered, my voice hoarse with despair. How can I fix this? That's the question, isn't it? Asner leaned in closer, his breath chilling me to the bone. You can't undo the past, Robert, but you can choose how you move forward. The question is, will you? The darkness around me felt suffocating, but in the midst of that suffocation, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I could almost hear Clara's voice calling me back, urging me to fight. I had to face this, confront the reality of my choices, and find a way to save my family from myself. As the darkness enveloped me, I felt a cold chill creep into my bones. I found myself standing in a surreal landscape, where shadows danced at the edges of my vision, whispering secrets I couldn't quite grasp. It felt like a dream, yet I was painfully aware that this was no ordinary dream. I was lost between life and death, caught in a liminal space where the weight of my choices pressed down on me like a heavy fog. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, with a face that twisted into a mocking grin. Asner! I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing in my ears like a drum signaling impending doom. Robert, he said, his voice smooth as silk yet laced with venom. Welcome to your paradise, a kingdom built on smoke and despair. What do you want from me? I stammered, my voice trembling as I took a step back. I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to fit in. Asner let out a cruel laugh that reverberated through the empty space. Fit in? You've done an excellent job of that, haven't you? Look around you. This is the life you've created. A haze of smoke and regret. With a wave of his hand, the shadows coalesced into images, flickering before my eyes like a twisted slideshow of my past. I saw myself at that party, the first time I lit a cigarette. The laughter of my friends, the thrill of acceptance washed over me like a drug. Do you remember this, Robert? The moment you chose to embrace the darkness. Asner taunted. The scene shifted, and I felt a pang of guilt as I watched myself growing older. I was sitting at my desk, surrounded by papers, a cigarette dangling from my fingers. The coughs and wheezes that started innocently now echoed ominously in the background. Just stress, I had told myself. I can handle it. But Asner's laughter cut through my thoughts. Stress? Or denial? You ignored the warnings, didn't you? And look where it's led you. With another wave, the images morphed again, this time showing my children, Lucas and Sophia. Their faces etched with fear and sorrow as they watched me struggle to breathe. My heart sank, and for a moment, I was paralyzed by the weight of the truth. No, please, I whispered, my throat tightening as I witnessed the pain I had inflicted on my family. Clara, my dear Clara, appeared next, her face streaked with tears, desperately pleading with me to stop. You have to take care of yourself. Robert, we need you, she cried, her voice echoing in my mind like a haunting melody. Why won't you listen? This is the real consequence of your choices. Asner sneered, stepping closer, his presence oppressive. You think you're just hurting yourself, but look closer. You're suffocating them too. I turned away, unable to face the pain I had caused, but the images continued to haunt me, relentless in their cruelty. Is this what you wanted? Asner asked, his eyes glinting with malicious delight. A legacy of sorrow and despair? Your children growing up without a father? Your wife left to pick up the pieces? This is your reality, Robert, and it can only get worse. The landscape shifted again, and I was confronted with a chilling vision of my future. I saw myself, older, frailer, gasping for breath as I lay on a hospital bed, tubes connected to my body, my family standing around me, their faces twisted in grief. No, I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the abyss. But it's too late for that, isn't it? Asner whispered, his breath hot against my ear. You've already made your choices. This is your fate, Robert. A life cut short, a family torn apart, all because you couldn't resist the allure of smoke. Despair washed over me like a tidal wave, and I felt myself sinking deeper into the darkness. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. I just wanted to be accepted. I thought I could control it. Asner leaned in closer, the shadows swirling around us. Control? You've lost control the moment you lit that first cigarette. You have the power to change your fate, but you chose the easy path instead of the one that leads to redemption. His words struck me like a hammer, each syllable resonating with the heavy truth of my existence. As he stepped back, I realized that I was the only one holding the key to my future. The images of my family flashed before my eyes once more, and I felt a flicker of something deep within me, a spark of determination igniting against the overwhelming darkness. I don't want this future, I said, my voice steadier now. I want to fight for my family. I want to change. Asner's grin faltered slightly, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of uncertainty in his eyes. But can you truly escape the shadows? They linger long after the smoke has cleared. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my choices heavy on my shoulders, but I also felt the love of my family pressing against my heart. I will fight, I declared, my voice strong. I won't let you win. With that declaration, the darkness began to recede, the shadows fading into the background. I felt a surge of hope, a small but fierce light pushing back against the encroaching darkness. Asner's laughter echoed in the distance, but I no longer felt its grip. I had a choice to make, and I was ready to embrace the fight for my life. I woke up in a sterile, white room, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly above me. My body felt heavy, as if I was submerged in a thick fog. The smell of antiseptic was overwhelming, but it was the warmth of a hand in mine that brought me back to reality. I turned my head slowly and met Clara's eyes, red and puffy from crying. "Robert," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You're awake." "Thank God." I blinked, trying to piece together how I had ended up here. Images rushed back. Asna's twisted grin, the suffocating darkness, the pain I had caused my family. Panic surged through me as I tried to sit up, but Clara gently pushed me back against the pillows. "Easy now," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You need to rest. You collapsed at the park. The doctors said it was a respiratory failure due to your smoking." My heart sank. The weight of my choices pressed down on me like a lead blanket. I looked at Clara, her face a portrait of worry and love. "I'm so sorry, Clara," I managed to say, my voice hoarse. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she squeezed my hand tighter. "I was so scared, Robert. I thought I lost you. You have to promise me you'll quit. For us. For the kids." I closed my eyes, letting her words wash over me. I thought about Lucas and Sophia, their innocent faces twisted in concern, and I felt a fresh wave of guilt. "I can't keep doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to hurt you or the kids anymore. I want to change." "Then do it," Clara urged, her voice now stronger. "You have to fight this, Robert. You have to fight for yourself and for us." I nodded, determination swelling inside me, but the fear of failure gnawed at my insides. "What if I can't?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Then we'll fight together," Clara replied, her eyes locking onto mine. "You're not alone in this. You never were." Her words reminded me of the vision Asna had shown me, the future I would leave behind if I didn't change. I could see Clara standing by the grave of a man she once loved, trying to console our children, but their eyes were filled with grief and confusion. The thought made my heart ache. I couldn't let that happen. "I'll do it," I said, the resolve in my voice growing stronger. "I'll quit smoking. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." Tears of relief filled Clara's eyes, and she leaned down to kiss my forehead. "I believe in you, Robert. We'll find a way through this together." As I lay there, I could feel my heart racing with the promise I had made, not just to Clara, but to myself. The road ahead would be challenging, but I had seen the depths of despair, and I refused to let it swallow me whole. I had to fight, not just for my life but for the lives of those I loved. "I need help, Clara," I said, my voice shaky but firm. "I can't do this alone. I need a plan." She nodded, wiping her tears away. "We'll talk to the doctors. They can set you up with a program. We'll get you into counseling and find a support group. You can do this." I smiled weakly, but inside, I felt a flicker of hope. The journey would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was ready to take that first step. I want to be a better husband and father. I want to show our kids that I can change. The door opened, and a nurse stepped in, flashing a warm smile. "Good to see you awake, Mr. Roberts. How are you feeling?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm ready to change," I said, meeting Clara's gaze, her eyes sparkling with pride. "I want to live." "That's the spirit," the nurse said, jotting down notes on her clipboard. "We'll get you started on a recovery plan right away." As she left, I turned back to Clara, my heart pounding with renewed purpose. No more darkness. I'm done with Asna and the lies of that smoke. Clara nodded, her smile brightening the room. "Yes, Robert. Together, we'll find the light." I lay on the hospital bed, the sterile scent of antiseptic filling my nostrils, as I stared at the ceiling tiles, each one a reminder of my choices. The rhythmic beeping of the machines around me blended into a monotonous lullaby, and I felt the weight of my decisions pressing down on my chest. It was a strange juxtaposition. I was alive, yet I had never felt more dead inside. "Robert," Clara's voice broke through my thoughts. I turned my head to see her sitting in a chair beside me, her eyes puffy and red from crying. "You scared us. I was so afraid. I thought I was going to lose you." "I know," I replied, my voice cracking. "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, as if they could never encapsulate the pain I had caused her and our children. I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, mingled with fear and disappointment. I just don't understand why you let it get this far, she said, her voice trembling. You've been coughing for months, Robert. I tried to tell you. I tried to help. I thought I could handle it, I admitted, my gaze dropping to the blanket covering me. I thought I was strong enough to control it. Control what? The addiction? The pain? Clara's voice escalated, but then softened as she leaned closer, her hand reaching for mine. You can't fight this alone. You need to want to change. A wave of guilt washed over me. I had been so wrapped up in my own denial that I hadn't seen how my actions had affected her. I do want to change, Clara. I swear. I don't know where to start. In that moment, the haunting images of Asna flashed through my mind, the darkness that had surrounded me during my encounter with him. I could still hear his mocking laughter, taunting me with my failures. I don't want to be that man anymore, I whispered, tears brimming in my eyes. Clara squeezed my hand tighter. Then let's do this together. But you have to promise me something. No more lies. No more pretending you're fine when you're not. I promise, I said, the weight of my vows settling heavily in the room. I want to be better for you and for the kids. I don't want them to see me like this. As I lay there, contemplating my journey, I began to reflect on the signs I had ignored, the persistent cough, the shortness of breath, the moments when I'd see my children watching me with worry etched on their little faces. I had been so focused on my own needs that I hadn't realized the damage I was inflicting on the very people I love the most. I need to talk to you about something, I said, my voice steadier now. About the kids and what they've been going through. Clara nodded, her expression softening. They are scared, Robert. They see you struggle, and they don't understand why you can't just stop. I never wanted them to feel that way, I said, feeling a knot form in my throat. I didn't think about the impact my choices would have on them. I was too caught up in my own world. Clara's eyes filled with tears again. But this time, there was a glimmer of understanding. It's not too late, Robert. You can still change. We can help them understand that this isn't just about you. It's about all of us. I took a deep breath, feeling a spark of determination igniting within me. I want to teach them about the risks, about the dangers of smoking. I want them to know that it's never too late to choose health over addiction. Yes, that's a great idea, Clara said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. They need to see that you're taking this seriously, that you're fighting for your life and for them. A new resolve washed over me. I'll do it, Clara. I'll make it my mission to protect them, to show them that life can be different. I want to be the father they deserve. As Clara nodded, a sense of hope began to replace the despair that had consumed me. I could feel the healing starting, not just within myself but within my family. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was ready to face the challenges ahead, armed with the love and support of the people I cared about most. And I knew that it started with honesty, not just with them, but with myself. I woke up to the sterile smell of antiseptic, the sound of machines beeping in the background, and the soft murmur of voices floating in and out of my consciousness. Blinking my eyes open, I was momentarily disoriented, but then I felt the warmth of a hand clasping mine. Clara. Her face was etched with worry, but when our eyes met, a flicker of relief passed over her features. Robert, she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of surprise and joy. You're awake. We were so worried, Clara, I croaked, my throat dry. What happened? The memories rushed back. The collapse, the darkness, Asna. I shuddered at the thought. You collapsed at the park. The doctors said you had a severe respiratory crisis. They brought you here to the hospital, she explained, tears glistening in her eyes. But you're okay now. You're going to be okay. I nodded slowly, still feeling the weight of what I had seen. Asna's cruel laughter echoed in my mind, reminding me of the choices I had made. But amidst the chaos of confusion, there was a newfound determination brewing within me. I had a second chance, and I was not going to waste it. Clara, I need to change, I whispered, my voice barely above a whisper. I can't keep doing this. I won't. Clara's grip tightened around my hand. What do you mean? I want to quit smoking. I want to be healthy for you and the kids. I need to be there for them, I said, my heart racing. Her eyes widened in surprise, and then she smiled through her tears. Oh, Robert, that's amazing. But it won't be easy. You know that, right? I know, I said, inhaling deeply. But I've seen what it does to me. To us. I won't let Asna win. The name felt heavy on my tongue, a reminder of the darkness I had faced. Clara nodded, her expression shifting to one of encouragement. You're strong, Robert. We can do this together. We'll get through it as a family. Days passed, and I found myself in a rehabilitation program. The first session was daunting. The room was filled with people from all walks of life, each with their own story of addiction. As I sat in a circle, I could feel the weight of judgment and vulnerability. Hi, my name is Robert. I introduced myself, my voice wavering slightly. I'm here because I've been struggling with smoking for years. I want to quit. For my family. One of the other participants, an older man with weary eyes, nodded knowingly. It's tough, man. I've been trying to quit for a long time. It's like fighting a ghost that never leaves you. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I know that feeling. I met a figure in my mind. It was like a demon, telling me how I was destroying everything I loved. It shook me to my core. The group fell silent, eyes fixed on me, and I felt exposed but also relieved. I don't want to go back to that place. I want to fight for my family. A woman sitting across from me spoke up, her voice steady but gentle. You can do this, Robert. It's about taking it one day at a time. You have to find your triggers and learn how to deal with them. Triggers? I asked, curious. Yeah, like stress, anger, or even just being around friends who smoke. You'll need a plan for when those moments hit, she explained. I took her words to heart. I realized I needed a strategy, a way to combat the cravings that would inevitably come my way. Over the next few weeks, I immersed myself in the process. I attended therapy sessions, listened to others' struggles, and began to understand the depth of my addiction. Each day felt like a small victory, but there were moments of doubt too. One evening, Clara and I sat on the couch together, the kids playing in the background. I felt the urge to smoke creeping in, like a shadow reaching for me. Clara, I'm struggling, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I feel the weight of it all. What if I fail? She looked at me, her eyes filled with love and understanding. You won't fail, Robert. You've already taken the hardest step by admitting it. Remember what you saw? You don't want to go back there. You have us now. You're not alone in this. Her words sparked something inside me. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. You're right. I'm not alone. I have to keep fighting. For all of us. Together, we faced those challenges, and I began to adopt healthier habits. I started exercising, going for walks around the neighborhood, feeling the fresh air fill my lungs. I even found joy in cooking healthy meals with Clara, laughing as we experimented with new recipes. There was something profoundly healing in those moments, a sense of unity that I had long overlooked. As I looked at my family, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, a hope that I could change, that I could break free from the chains of addiction. And with every step I took towards recovery, I knew that I was not just fighting for myself, but for the love of my life, for Clara, and for our beautiful children. The weight of the world hung heavily on my shoulders as I stepped into the office that Monday morning. The familiar scent of stale coffee and printer ink wafted through the air, mixing with the anxiety that churned in my stomach. I had been smoke-free for almost 3 weeks, a milestone I was proud of, yet the echoes of Asna's taunts still lingered in my mind. Can you really escape? He had sneered. As I settled at my desk, the phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. It was my supervisor, barking orders about an urgent project. The stress quickly mounted, and I felt that familiar tug of temptation. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, but it felt shallow. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for my stress ball, squeezing it tightly. I can't go back, I whispered to myself. I won't, but the pressure was relentless. Soon enough, I found myself wandering outside during my break, the sun shining brightly, but it felt like a spotlight on my struggle. My heart raced as I glanced at a group of colleagues gathered around a smoking area, their laughter mingling with the tendrils of smoke curling into the air. I could almost taste the nicotine, the familiar rush of the first drag pulling at the edges of my resolve. Hey, Robert, you okay, man? One of them called out, a friendly grin on his face. Yeah, just taking a breather, I replied, forcing a smile. But inside, I felt a storm brewing. I turned away from them, taking a few steps back, trying to distance myself from the temptation. I could hear their laughter fading as I walked further away, but the weight of their camaraderie pressed in on me. I returned to my desk, my mind racing. The memories of my family filled my thoughts. Clara's worried eyes, Lucas and Sophia's innocent faces. They were my anchors, but the pull of the old habit was insidious. I could feel the tension building in my chest, and before long, I found myself pacing the small confines of my cubicle. "Robert!" Clara's voice echoed in my mind, her voice a soothing balm against the chaos. I needed to talk to her. I grabbed my phone and sent her a quick message. "Can we talk tonight? I'm struggling." I didn't expect a reply immediately, but within moments, my phone buzzed. "Of course, love. I'm here for you." Her words brought a flicker of comfort. But as the day dragged on, the storm inside me only intensified. I felt like I was teetering on the edge, and just as I thought I might fall, the memory of Asna's mocking laughter filled my head. "You're weak, Robert. You can't escape." The clock ticked slowly, and when the workday finally ended, I rushed home, my heart pounding. Clara was waiting for me in the living room, her expression a mix of concern and love. "Hey, you," she said softly, her arms wrapping around me. "What's going on?" "I almost caved today," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "At work. I felt so stressed. I almost went back to smoking." Clara pulled back, her eyes searching mine. "But you didn't. You're here with me, and that's what matters. We can get through this together." I nodded, grateful for her support. But the fear still gnawed at me. What if I can't keep it up? What if I mess everything up? "Listen to me," she said firmly, taking my hands in hers. "You've already made it this far. Every day without smoking is a victory. We just have to take it one day at a time. You're stronger than you think." Her words resonated with me, igniting a spark of determination. "I want to be better for you and the kids. I can't let this addiction control me anymore. I'm so tired of feeling like I'm on the verge of falling apart." Clara smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "And you won't. We'll face this together. Just remember, I believe in you." The warmth of her belief wrapped around me like a shield against the darkness. "Thank you for always being there," I said, my voice cracking with emotion. "I promise to keep fighting." We spent the evening talking, sharing our fears, our hopes, and our dreams. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The battle against my addiction wouldn't be easy, but with Clara by my side, I knew I had the strength to resist the temptations that lurked in the shadows. The laughter of my children echoed in my mind, a reminder of what I was fighting for. I closed my eyes, ready to face another day. As I stood in front of the small crowd gathered at the community health center, my heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. It had been months since I'd left the darkness of my addiction behind, but the memories still lingered like shadows. Today, I was not just Robert. I was a survivor, a voice for those still trapped in the grip of smoking. "Good afternoon, everyone," I started, my voice shaking slightly. "My name is Robert, and I'm here to share my journey with you. A journey that, for too long, was shrouded in smoke and regret." I glanced down at my hands, remembering the feel of the cigarette between my fingers, the way it had once felt like comfort before it became a noose around my neck. As I looked up, I noticed several faces in the audience nodding, some even leaning forward eagerly. Just a few years ago, I was a heavy smoker. I thought I was invincible, just a young man trying to fit in, seeking acceptance, and in the process, I lost sight of what truly mattered: my health and my family. I paused, swallowing hard. The weight of my choices still sat heavy on my chest, but I pressed on. I remember my wife, Clara, begging me to quit. To her, it was not just about the cigarettes. It was about our children, about their future. I ignored her, believing I could control my addiction. But the truth is, I was spiraling into a darkness I couldn't see. I took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the room envelop me. It took a near-death experience for me to wake up. I noticed a young woman in the front row, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She raised a hand. "How did you find the strength to quit?" I smiled gently, grateful for her question. "It wasn't easy. After I collapsed, I met a figure, a representation of my darkest self, who showed me the pain I was inflicting on my loved ones. It was terrifying, but it also sparked a desire in me to change. I realized that I needed to fight not just for myself, but for Clara, Lucas, and Sophia. A ripple of understanding swept through the crowd. I could see that my words resonated, and it filled me with hope. So, I made a promise to myself. I promised to quit smoking. I entered a rehabilitation program, surrounded by supportive people who understood my struggle. And here's the thing, I didn't do it alone. Another voice chimed in from the back, a man in his 50s. Did you have any setbacks? Absolutely, I replied, nodding vigorously. There were days I wanted to give up. Stress at work would hit me like a wave, and the temptation to smoke was overwhelming. But each time, I remembered the pain I had seen, the tears of my wife, the cost of my children. That vision kept me grounded. I could see more heads nodding, and I felt empowered. I also started sharing my story in local schools and health events. It became a mission for me to educate others about the dangers of smoking, not just for themselves, but for their families. I organized events to raise funds for support groups, hoping to create a ripple effect of awareness. The audience was now captivated, leaning in closer. And you know what? Each time I share my story, I find my own strength renewed. It's like I'm saving myself all over again. If I can help even one person avoid the path I took, it makes every struggle worthwhile. A woman in the back stood up, her voice quivering. What if I fail? What if I can't quit? Failure is part of the journey, I replied earnestly. But it's important to keep trying. Surround yourself with people who care about you, who will support you. Remember, every step you take toward quitting is a step toward reclaiming your life. You're not alone in this fight. As the room filled with murmurs of agreement, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I was no longer just speaking about my past. I was building a community of hope. Together, we can break the cycle. Together, we can choose health over addiction. And together, we can create a future filled with love, laughter, and smoke-free air. With that, I concluded my talk. The applause that followed felt like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a long, dark night. I was no longer just a man who had battled addiction. I was a beacon of hope, ready to guide others towards a brighter future. As I stood at the podium, the bright lights of the community center illuminated the faces of the audience before me. They were a mix of concerned parents, curious teens, and a few recovering addicts. I could feel the weight of my journey pressing down on me, but I also felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. I had come so far from the dark days of my addiction, and tonight, I was here to share my story. Hello, everyone, I began, my voice steady but tinged with emotion. I'm Robert, and I'm a recovering smoker. It's been a long road, but I want you to know that change is possible. I could see nods of understanding among the audience, and it filled me with hope. As I spoke about my struggles, the moment I first lit a cigarette at that party, the fog of addiction that enveloped me, and the pain I caused my family, I noticed a familiar face at the back of the room. My heart sank as I recognized him. David, my childhood friend. We had grown up together, shared laughter, and dreams, but life had taken us on very different paths. I hadn't seen him in years, and the shadows under his eyes spoke volumes about the battles he was losing. After the talk, I made my way through the crowd, shaking hands and sharing words of encouragement. But my eyes kept drifting back to David, who was deep in conversation with a couple of other attendees. Finally, I gathered the courage to approach him. David, I said, trying to keep my voice even. It's been a long time. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of surprise and guardedness. Robert, yeah, it has. His gaze flickered, almost avoiding mine. I saw you at the podium. Impressive stuff. Really? Thanks, man. I've been working hard to turn my life around, I replied, hoping to connect with the old friend I once knew. How about you? How have you been? He laughed bitterly, a sound devoid of happiness. You really want to know? I'm still smoking. I've tried quitting 100 times, but his voice trailed off, and I could see the defeat etched on his face. David, I know how hard it is. I've been there, I said, my heart aching for him. But it can get better. I mean, look at me. I'm living proof. He looked at me, his eyes reflecting the struggle within. "You're lucky. You had a wake-up call, didn't you? I'm still waiting for mine, and I'm not sure it's coming." My thoughts raced back to the moment I met Asna, the demon of my addiction. "David, you can't wait for a wake-up call." I almost lost everything before I realized how far I had fallen. My family, my wife and kids, they were suffering because of my choices. "I don't want that for you," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You don't get it, Robert. I've lost everything. My job, my marriage. I'm alone now. No one is waiting for me to come back." The words hit me like a punch in the gut, and I felt the familiar chill of Asna's presence creeping in. "You're not alone, David. Not if you reach out. You have people who care about you." He shook his head, his voice trembling with despair. "I don't know if I can change. I've tried too many times. I'm trapped." In that moment, I could almost feel Asna's laughter echoing in my mind, a reminder that the darkness was always lurking, ready to consume. "I know it feels that way, but you have the power to fight back." "I did it. You can too. You just have to take that first step." David's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of hope. "What if I fail again?" he asked, vulnerability cracking through his bravado. "If you fall, you get back up." I fell too, but I learned to get back on my feet. It's about resilience, about fighting for what you love. "You can do this, David," I insisted, feeling the urgency of the moment. Suddenly, the air around us shifted, and I felt that familiar darkness creeping in. I glanced around, half expecting to see Asna lurking behind the crowd. But instead, I focused on David's face, determined to break the cycle. "Listen," I urged, lowering my voice. "You're not just fighting for yourself. Think about your family, your friends. They want you back. You don't have to let the darkness win." Tears glistened in his eyes. "What if I can't? What if I'm too far gone?" "No one is too far gone," I said firmly, my heart racing. "As long as you're breathing, there's hope. I'm here for you, and I'll help you every step of the way." As I spoke, I felt the weight of my own past pressing down on me. Asna's voice echoed in my mind, taunting me. "You think you've escaped? Many are still trapped, Robert." But I shook off the thought. This wasn't about me. It was about David and the countless others who were still fighting. "You're not alone in this fight," I repeated, my voice stronger than before. "Together, we can break free from this." David took a deep breath, as if considering my words. "Okay, I'll try. I don't want to be alone anymore." I reached out and clasped his shoulder, feeling a surge of hope. "That's all I ask. Let's walk this path together. Asna's darkness doesn't have to own us. We can be the light in each other's lives." As we stood there, I could feel the shadows receding, replaced by a flicker of determination. Asna's laughter faded into the background, and for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, together.